why this game looms large for both teams. First of all, this was going to make our show. It's a headline, but it's not a headline. There was a fire, Steve Sipple, at Memorial Stadium in Champaign, Illinois, and it became more of just a Twitter headline than an actual real headline. I mean, pretty much a lawnmower and a golf cart type vehicle.
Utility vehicle.
I mean,
the grounds crew. The grounds
had a rough night.
Yeah, the grounds crew at Memorial Stadium in Champaign's probably in a little trouble today. They had their equipment catch fire. We can make light of it because nobody was hurt, and it doesn't seem like it. Yeah, for a while I saw you and Robin speculate on where the game might be played, and I was like, okay, we hold our horses a little bit here. So, yeah, no big deal.
My only concern was like,
what was your concern, Sean?
That if it affected the playing surface, like if it's turf,
sure,
it's turf.
Yeah, it could could it catch on fire?
Well, it could burn up.
Yeah,
I mean, I remember there was a high school game. It was at Benson had turf. They were like one of the first places around here that had turf and
field turf.
Yeah, no, Astro back in the 90s.
Oh,
it was one of the few that had it. And somebody, if I remember right, lit their turf on fire and like as a prank and burn it up.
Really?
And so it was a big story back in the 90s. But this would be, like if the fire like extended out to the turf area and affected the grass or the surface, that would have been a problem. But yeah, it looks like it's nothing. So let's get to the game because this game is big for both teams.
Yes.
Nebraska's 2-3, Illinois is 2-3.
Yes.
And, I think Nebraska's 2-3. And here the sentiment is nobody thought they'd be 2-3, but Vegas had Nebraska underdogs in all three of their losses. So the reality is Nebraska was picked to lose 3 games, but I think most people are educated enough to think, hey, this Nebraska team probably should have beat Minnesota. And they had a shot to beat Colorado for a while, and they fell apart.
They did.
And, this is a 2-3 Nebraska team that should be 3-2, and, 4-1 isn't that, that far off if they played the kind of football they can play. Illinois, on the other hand, has not really looked good in any of their games.
No, they beat Toledo 30-28, and they got
last second field goal.
Yeah, last second field goal after a sort of it was a 4th down completion on 4th and long that helped set up the field goal. They really got hammered by KU. The final score was 34-23. Wasn't that close. Penn State 30-13. Illinois turned it over 5 times. They squeaked by FAU, Florida Atlantic 23-17, and then played really bad.
No Casey Thompson for FAU either.
Yeah, and then Illinois played poorly against Purdue and lost 44-19. They're really struggling in the secondary. They lost all 4 guys. They're really struggling in the secondary. They got Sean, the guy. Just one other thing on them. I'm not going to do a full breakdown of Illinois here, but they do have a player that concerns you. His name is Jershawn Newton,
All-American level, all Big Ten level player,
first rounder. So, and it looks like he would be on Ben Hart. I think Ben Hart would be the guy that's handling him a lot of the time.
But they don't have a lot of sacks.
No, they don't have a lot of sacks. But while we're talking about it, they've given up 20. Illinois has given up 20 sacks this year, which is 127th nationally. And if this puts it in perspective, it's 7 more than Nebraska's given up. They have a sieve up front. Okay, Illinois has a sieve. You should get back. You should get to Altmaier.
What does sieve mean?
Sieve is like a sieve that you pour drink in, and it's sieve. It's Sean, S-I-E-V-E. Your Omaha gross teachers right now are
you're a little too fancy with your football analogy there. It's a little too fancy for my Southo blood.
Your Southo teachers right now are cringing, Sean.
I've never used that word associated with football in my life. Have you?
I just did.
How did you come up? Is there another word that you could use besides sieve?
It's leaky as a.
It's leaky.
Yeah, it's leaky as a sieve.
They got some holes.
You just snorted, Sean. You just snorted.
You tried to use this fancy word,
sieve. I would argue
super smart and fancy with your
sieve.
There you go.
There you go.
There's your sieve.
A utensil consisting of water. Yeah, thank you, Megan. Sean. and Megan would agree with me, sieve is not a fancy word. It's not a fancy word. South O people know
I'd
that.
call that like a strainer.
Okay, a strainer.
I mean, like, but I mean, that's just a weird word to use. Okay, but they got problems on the offensive line.
That's the bottom
that's what
line.
you're trying to say,
right?
I dumbed it down for the other part of our audience that don't associate sieve with football.
You will see the comments on the YouTube that say sieve is a common word. It's a common word. Anyway, the line's bad. And Illinois is 69th in total offense. Now, listen, I don't want to act like they're terrible, though. They can beat Nebraska. Hell, they're favored to beat Nebraska.
Yeah.
I mean, they're last I checked, they're a 4-point favorite.
If this game was in Lincoln, Nebraska would be favored, though. I mean, I think it's one of those games. Whoever the home team is was probably going to be the favorite, and that's how it played out with this line. But I think when you looked at Illinois in the preseason and the games they had, you thought they'd be 3-2 or 4-1.
Yeah, they've definitely been more disappointing.
Like, nobody would have predicted that Purdue not only would beat them, they'd drum them.
Yeah.
And Kansas, I think, looked as a toss-up game. I don't think you thought that, hey, Kansas would throttle Illinois. So Brett Bielema in his third year, it's a little concerning because
a little
bit. This is probably the worst team he's had in his 3 years, and it's almost like like last year was his best team, and his first year was a surprise year. They almost went to a bowl when they were really, really picked last, and beating Nebraska to open that year in 2021 was a big reason why.
Right. Yeah, they've been disappointed. Against Purdue last week, they had 9 penalties. They're a heavily penalized team. 9 penalties, allowed 5 sacks, and really what gets your attention, they were 1 for 13 on third down. So, yeah, they really struggled against Purdue, which hadn't won on its home field. Purdue was 0-3 on its home field. So they broke that streak against them. The one other thing you'd add, they have a first-year defensive coordinator because Ryan Walters took the Purdue job. Purdue's head coach is Ryan Walters. He coached at Illinois. He was a defensive coordinator. It was his system. He ran the defense. Now they have a first-year defensive coordinator, new system, and a guy who's never been a coordinator before, Aaron Henry. So their defense has really struggled.